My mission with today's podcast episode is to completely transform your relationship when it comes to comparison, because people say that comparison is the thief of all joy. And for me, it's had the completely opposite effect. And I believe that if you shift your mindset and start believing in these 10 different new comparison approaches that I'm going to be sharing with you today, I believe that comparison is actually going to lead you towards a greater life and the life that you deep down desire and dream to create for yourself. And I am speaking from experience because there are many, many things in life that I have yet to learn and grow within and get better at. But when it comes to a positive mindset, when seeing other people succeed and having created really beautiful things in their life, I believe that I have found some of these keys that allows me and now also will allow you to just help you feel more joy and align your actions with these things that you deep down want and let go of the things that are not serving you. So here are my 10 different mindset hacks when it comes to comparing yourself to others that I believe will potentially, if used correctly, change your life.
Hi, my name is Pernilla, and this is my Challenge Your Norm podcast. I'm absolutely obsessed with anything related to personal development. And well, to grow, we got to challenge our norm. And so on this podcast, we chat about life and how we can challenge our normal way of living it to make it greater than we could have ever imagined. Just one little belief, habit, bold move, and challenge at a time.
And number one is practice gratitude for other people's abundance. I know it's easier said than done, that when you see someone else succeeding in an area of life that you have yet to succeed within, it's easier said than done to just be happy for them. But I really believe that when you feel happy and grateful for someone else's success, the universe, the energy around you, God is going to bless you with more of that as well. And I believe that I was very lucky because this is something that was ingrained in me from when I was very little, because this is going to sound negative, but it was a very positive thing that my parents did. They did not treat me and my brothers equally. When my brother needed something specific, he would get it, and we would not get anything. When I needed something specific, I would get it, and my brothers wouldn't get anything. I think a lot of children are grown up in homes where if one person gets something, then the other people needs to get something as well. But I wasn't raised that way. I was raised in a way where it's like, if someone needs something, they will get that today. But that doesn't mean that the other two kids are going to get anything. I can imagine that if it's not done in the right way, it can develop an even greater comparison and feeling of lack within the child who isn't receiving something on any given day. But because it was done in such a loving and abundant way, knowing that just because your brother is getting something today and you're not, that doesn't mean that when you're lacking in something, you're not going to get something. Like I felt that knowing that when I was in need, I was going to receive and get the thing that I needed. And what that's made me believe now as an adult is that there's enough to come around. And if someone is succeeding in a field or getting something that I really want, then I'm going to be happy for them because they deserved it in this very moment. Right here now is when it was right for them to receive this thing, and I'm going to receive my treasures when the time is right for me. And like I said, I know it's easier said than done, but next time you see someone have something, achieve something, be something, do something that you deep down want, celebrate it for them. Really try to do your best to feel happy for them and affirm with yourself that the universe has enough for you as well. And it's going to come to you in your right divine timing. I know that you've probably gone through hardships in life and it's like in the moment you're like, oh, why is this happening? This is terrible. But then later afterwards, you can see that that thing that you wanted to happen that didn't happen and that disastrous thing happened instead. You can now today looking back see why it had to be done and come to you in that order for you to learn certain lessons or for you today to have something that was far greater than you could have imagined and that you wanted at that time of your life. So just remind yourself that the universe has your back. God has your back. Trust it. I said at the beginning of this episode that I believe comparison is what's helped me achieve the life that I've always dreamt of or wanted. And what I meant by that leads me to my second point, which is reframe comparison into inspiration. Because what I started doing very early on was that when back in the day I wanted to be a dancer, I would see dancers accomplish certain goals and think to myself, wow, that would be so cool if I could do that as well. What have they done? What are their skills? How did they train? Who have they trained with? I would ask myself these different questions so that I could get to the level that they had worked their way up to get to, so that I could achieve this for myself as well. And when I wanted to get in badass shape, for so long, I wanted to get in badass shape, but it wasn't until I looked at myself where I was actually really honest with myself, where I was at with my body and my habits, and compared myself to someone who really had achieved this incredible physique that I deep down wanted, and I could compare what they were doing with what I was doing. And with that comparison, I could then start taking those same aligned actions that the person who had gotten in that incredible shape that I wanted to get in, I could start doing that as well. So when you see someone on social media who's in great shape, instead of comparing yourself, making yourself feel like you're not good enough, first of all, why would you do that? If you ever again catch yourself doing that, I want you to start stopping yourself in that moment and ask yourself, what is it within this post that I saw that I deep down want for my life as well? Continuing this talk about getting in badass shape. What is it that they have developed? What are the habits that they have developed in their life that I could start incorporating into my own life? And start slow. Maybe you start off with exercising more. You start exercising 3 times a week. Then you start looking at their whole foods diet, and you little by little start creating more healthy, nutritious habits when it comes to your food. You start learning about progressive overload, like little steps at a time. You use that comparison to guide you into aligning your actions with what it is that you deep down want. And same came with when I wanted to start sharing my life and sharing my lessons online. I would look at other content creators and I would learn from them. Okay, so this content creator have made a living out of creating content, and I would love to be able to do that for myself as well. Okay, well, where did they start? What did they start doing? Okay, they are posting workout videos online. Could I start posting my workout videos online and give my own little touch on the personality in the way in which I'm doing it? And starting small, getting very clear on the thing that we see within someone else who has that thing that we may be comparing ourselves with, asking ourselves, what is it that I am comparing myself to within that person? And how could I set a specific goal for myself to accomplish that for myself? I've done this within every single area of my life. Right now, I'm sitting and recording a podcast episode, and I started doing that because I saw other people recording podcasts, and I wanted to do that for myself as well. And I tried recording 10 episodes before I ever uploaded my first podcast episode because I didn't know how to talk to a camera. But I had seen someone else record podcasts, thinking it was super cool, wanting to be able to do that myself as well. And I knew that in order for me to do that new thing that this other person has potentially developed, like the skill of podcasting developed over years, I knew that if I needed to develop that skill, I needed to also start practicing. And I started this podcast with a microphone and my computer, sitting in a bed recording podcast episodes. Then at one point I decided, okay, now I'm going to film it. I'm going to put video on it. And now literally today, because I really want to make this podcast improve, I really want to have this podcast become a lot bigger part of my work, of my business, of what I do, because I absolutely love it. I love sitting and talking to you. I love interviewing people who I admire and learning from them. I really want this podcast to be one of the main things I do with my work. And so I've now looked at some of the greatest podcasts and asked myself, what is it that they're doing? How can I compare what I'm currently doing which is I have a small podcast with a small audience who I love and I'm so grateful for. But if I want to take this to the next level, how can I compare myself to these bigger podcasts and learn from them and get inspired by what they're doing? So literally today, for the first time, I'm recording myself on 2 cameras and I'm in the middle of getting a third camera so that now I've invited a ton of awesome guests to come on, which I'm really excited to share with you as I'm expanding this podcast channel, improving it, being inspired by these people who are on the next level of me, comparing my current to how can I improve and learn from these people who are currently at a next level. And it's like taking it little bit steps at a time. I've bought some new equipment, which let me tell you, it took 1 hour for me to set all of this up. First of all, because I had to figure out the different SD cards with like 2 cameras at once. I bought a new microphone that I had to figure out how to work with this new audio, something I don't even know what the word is. I don't like doing anything type of technical, but it's that thing. It's like seeing what it is that we want and knowing that in order for us to get there, we can either sit back and be sad that we don't have that thing that they have, or we can little bit by bit learn the skills, get the tools that are necessary for us to take our life, our journey to that next level and use that comparison. I'm just calling it comparison. For me, it's really inspiration, but comparison, switching that into inspiration and step by step moving in that direction that we see other people have moved in. And like I said, when I started this podcast, I first didn't even upload any of the episodes I recorded because I felt they were so terrible. I couldn't even speak. Then I, like I mentioned, started the camera. Now I'm having multiple cameras. I actually just signed a lease for a new place where I'm going to be building a podcast studio. And this is after it's been 2.5 years, I think, that I've had this podcast now, almost 3. So it's like years built up. My social media platforms I've had for like 6 years now, or is it 7? No. I think it's 6 years, where little bit by bit I've learned on the journey how to edit, how to make more good content. And I've done that by seeing other people thriving, doing incredible jobs at it. And in those moments, I could sit back and be scrolling on my phone and comparing myself, saying that I'm not as good as them, or I can use that as inspiration and know that if they have been able to build their life up, their business up, their social media platforms, their inspiration in ways they're communicating with the world up, then I can learn from them and use those same tools to do that for me. And yes, it's going to take time, but growth is my core value in life. And as long as I'm growing, even if I'm failing and it feels hard and I feel like I suck at it on the journey, if I'm growing, I do feel that I'm succeeding, because anyone who has accomplished anything good in life, great in life, have failed a lot along the way. So reminding myself of that helps a lot. But I think I just started going on a tangent and mentioning a lot of the other things I wanted to speak with you about on this podcast episode. But my third mindset when it comes to a mindset shift, when it comes to comparison, is the 4-minute mile mindset. I'm sure you've heard of this, but Roger Bannister I believe that's his name, broke the 4-minute mile after thousands of years of people seeing that as an absolute impossible accomplishment. Like no one in the world had been able to complete a 4-minute mile before because no one had seen that be possible. But the absolutely insane thing is that once he broke that record and was able to accomplish that, very shortly after, multiple other runners were able to do the same thing. And it's that idea that when we see someone else succeed in something that we thought was impossible, knowing that it is possible, it makes us believe it is possible more so than when we thought it was impossible. That's why I feel comparison is so powerful, because if we can see that other people have been able to build these lives, do these things, accomplish whatever it is that they've accomplished that we're inspired by or that we tend to compare ourselves to in our life, then we know deep down that we can do it as well. And I want that to lead us into mindset number 4, which is turn comparison into clarity. When you next time see someone on social media and you make yourself feel bad about it. I mentioned this shortly previously because I went on that little tangent about how it is such a beautiful opportunity for you to ask yourself, what is it within them, within what I see on this post that I deep down desire in my life? For me, like I mentioned, I've built my life off of seeing other people do cool things and thought to myself, if they can do it, then so can I. But asking ourselves, what is it actually that I am inspired by or compare this person to myself? And how am I not actually moving towards doing that thing in my life? And let's say it's that you see someone have abs and you want abs, but you keep not aligning your workout routine or diet with that goal of yours. You can ask yourself, well, to get abs, this person has probably had to stay consistent with their diet. They probably pretty much consistently are staying consistent with their healthy diet. And they're also probably making their way to the gym 5 or 6 times a week in order to have that physique. Is that something that I actually want in my life? Would I actually be happy with that? And if the answer is no, you can let it go. And then from there on, moving forward, whenever you see someone with abs and you start that comparison game, you can remind yourself, oh, wait, that's actually not what I want, because that's not the kind of life I want to live. When we have awareness on something, we can choose to shift our thoughts. So if the answer is no, you can stop making yourself feel bad about it, let it go, move on with your life, live in alignment with what you want for your life. That comes down to self-esteem, right? That comes down to loving who we are, the choices that we make, the person that we want to be in this life. If the answer is, yeah, that actually is something that I would want. I actually do want to, for a period of time in my life, let's say 6 months, a year in my life, I want to really get super duper committed and determined with staying consistent with my diet and my training and the daily habits that are going to help me succeed in trying to get abs. For some people, it's going to take longer, right? It depends on how far you are from the goal. Me building my social media platforms, like I said, it's taken 6 or 7 years to build up what I have now. Every single day working towards that goal. You may see me have a lot of followers, let's say, and you think to yourself, I really want that too. That must be cool. Okay, but are you willing to spend hours every single day thinking of, creating, editing, posting consistently, even during those times where you are seeing no growth at all? Are you willing to do that for 6 or 7 years? If the answer is no, you can let it go. If the answer is yes, maybe there's something to it. Maybe, you got to set yourself certain goals and create an actual clear action plan in order for you to do that, because many people are doing this and it's just about following the strategy that works and continuously improving and getting better and taking it little bits at a time. But going back to the abs example, if that's what you want, and you realize that you keep comparing yourself with people who are in great shape, and it's because you deep down actually want that for yourself as well, then you can create an action plan. And something I'll say with that, and really with any goal, if we want to set ourselves any type of goal that is outside of our norm, harder than how we currently are living our life, we have to be so committed and determined that there's no option of us failing. There's just no way that we're not gonna every single day commit to this goal that we've set for ourselves. And when we have one day that's off, that we don't let that completely go back to our old habits, but that we use that one day where we, let's say, ended up eating more than we had planned for because we were exhausted. We can then study that experience and ask yourself, what went wrong on that day? Why did I not stick to what I had said I wanted to stick to on that day? And learn from that experience so that we in the future can set ourselves up for success. Oftentimes, if we end up binge eating, it's often because we haven't allowed ourselves to connect with ourselves. We have overexhausted ourselves. Maybe we've been in too big of a caloric deficit. Asking ourselves, what was the cause of me having this little mess up or learning lesson, and learning from it and continuously moving. You cannot fail if you just don't give up, right? You can only fail if you give up. That's the only way that you can fail. So comparing yourself to others on social media, asking yourself, what is it within their life that I deep down want for my life? And how can I set a clear goal and then make a clear action plan and move towards it? And by the way, if you want to get supported with both developing your dream life or getting in the best shape of your life, that is literally what we do inside of my challenges we just started my January challenge. We're going to be starting our February challenge in not too long. You can also just join my community anytime. And we support each other in these things. And what's really powerful in there also is that it's like when you have a day where you feel demotivated and you then see a post from someone else who's like, I just did today's legs and glute and abs workout and I just feel so powerful now, but before I did it I didn't feel motivated today. I felt a lack of energy, but now that I've done it I feel so good, and look at this post-workout meal that I made and it's so delicious and it's filled with protein. It's like if you have a day where you feel lack of motivation and you then see a post like that, it's like, okay, well, she didn't feel like showing up today either, but she did it and she now feels amazing, so I can do it too. So I think that's awesome. So if you feel like joining and having like a supportive community around you, as well as me in there answering every single question and post inside of the group every single day, weekly calls, you should sign up. I'll put the description below. But moving on to number 5. Number 5, which is audit your actions honestly. If, let's say, you want to build a business and you see a business in the same field as you. It could also be if you're trying to build a social media following and you see someone posting similar content to you or in the same field as you, thriving, gaining all of the engagement, and a business making all the sales, and you're standing there comparing yourself because you're like, why in the world are they just crushing it while I'm here making no progress at all? Trust me, I've been in that situation. And in the moment when I have not been honest with myself, I would tell myself that I was creating just as good content, or I was marketing just as much, or I was eating just as healthy, let's say. But when you truly look at what the person thriving is doing and you who's maybe staying stagnant, it could just be because they've been doing it for so long and you just literally need to put in the reps. Like often in today's world, it's like we think that if we've done something for 6 months and we're not making any progress, it's like, why am I not winning? But it's because it takes years to build great things up from the ground. But let's talk about content, for example. In the times in my career as a content creator that I have not made any progress, in the moment, I would work every day and try so hard to make good content. But looking back at, for instance, content that I was making at the time and comparing it with people who were thriving, I can today, looking back, see that there were things that they were doing that I was not. It could be the fact that I was shooting worse quality. It could be that I did not have a good hook. It could be that I was trying to copy other people and they were being more authentic. They were putting a personal touch on their type of content. It could be that my storytelling was off. It could be that my lighting was off. It could be that my posts weren't colorful enough, dark enough, light enough. It could be that the text font that I was using was last year type of text font. There are so many things that go into creating, for example, a beautiful, awesome post that captivates people. Same goes with, let's say, this podcast. I still have so much to learn when it comes to being a good podcast host. And I could today compare myself and be like, well, my podcast is just as good as someone who's like thriving. But if I look at it honestly, is there something about the energy that this other podcaster is putting into her podcast? Is there something about the introduction? Is there something about the guests that they have on? Is there something about their lighting, their camera equipment, their sound? And there probably is. I am 100% sure that I can be way more clear in the way I'm communicating my messages. And I'm also very aware that the only way that I can grow and get better at that is putting in the reps. It's studying the people who are doing it great and continuously every single time potentially getting 1% better. Maybe I feel like, oh my gosh, I've done this podcast for 3 years now and I'm still so small and all these other podcasters are doing great. If that was the view, this is not how I look at it. I feel very grateful for, even though podcasting, like my podcast is like the smallest thing I have, like the thing that the least people listen to and view. I'm just so excited about the people who are listening, and I'm excited about the growth opportunity, and I'm excited about the work. Like sitting here and talking to you right now, like I mentioned, is so exciting to me. But I went on a tangent because my point of this is I can compare myself to these podcasters who are thriving and think I'm doing as well. But if I'm completely honest with myself, I can see so clearly that they're doing certain things that I'm still growing within and learning to get better at. And that's okay. That's why comparison is so beautiful, because I can learn from these people that are freaking crushing it and that I love to listen to their podcast. Like, there's so many awesome podcasters out there and I just love listening to them. I'm such a podcast lover, truly. Number 6 is stepping into gratitude for what you have. As we all know, if we have gratitude for the things we have, we're only going to be attracting more of it into our life. It's a little bit more on the woo-woo side, but I like to add a little spicy woo-woo into every single one of my podcasts. And I also feel like gratitude truly fires you up and makes you align your actions with the things that you deep down want. It's the same of like if you go to the gym and you do an incredible workout, and after the workout, you look at yourself and you're like, you're still fat AF. It's like, you're not going to want to show up for your next workout. Where if you show up for your workout and after the workout, you're like, you sexy little woman, you crushed that workout, and look at those triceps, look at that booty, you fired that shit up. Then it's going to release dopamine and it's going to make you want to show up again, because your brain is going to correlate it with something beautiful. And so if you have great gratitude for everything that you do have, then it's just going to make you want to show up for more of those things. Number 7 is use jealousy as a goal setter. I haven't mentioned jealousy a lot in this podcast, but I think a lot of what's typically going on with comparison can often be turned into a level of jealousy. You know, maybe you see someone who's pursuing the same thing as you, but you see them crushing it and being able to do 10 times as much in a day than you are. Again, studying what is it that they're doing. Maybe the reason they can, now I'm going back to content creation because that's a lot of the work that I do, but maybe the reason you realize that they're able to do so much is because they actually batch shoot their content. They come up with 15 different video ideas and they shoot all of it in one day rather than spreading it out on 15 days and it taking up 5 times as much time. That's what I do. I batch create content. I could be way better at it. Like I could shoot way more podcasts in the same day. But what I do for now is I do batch create my short videos, and it's helped me so much. And the reason I started batch creating content is because I noticed that the people who are able to provide a lot of content, they batch shoot. They create a ton of different videos in one day, and that just helps them be more productive and get more out there. So what is it that you're jealous of, and help it set your goals? For me, it's like once a week I want to, or maybe once every 2 weeks, I want to batch create some short form content. What is something that you potentially have been jealous of? Maybe again, it could be your fitness journey. It could be how someone is showing up as a mom. How could you use that as inspiration to set a goal for you in your life to show up in that way? Number 8 is focus on progress, not perfection. If I had focus on perfection, I would have never gotten started on my podcast because I sucked at it so much in the beginning, which some may say I still do. If I had focus on perfection over progress with my every content creation I do, I would have failed. I would have never started. And same goes with my fitness journey. Same goes with every single thing in my life. It's more so about just getting started and focusing on those tiny little baby steps. Like, you cannot compare yourself to someone who's been doing it for a year, 10 years, 15, 20 years. Obviously, they're going to be ahead of you, but maybe instead of comparing yourself, or you can compare yourself to where they are now if you want to just like go from 0 to 100, but maybe ask yourself, how did they start? Like if we look at Jay Shetty, he's a very incredible speaker, podcaster. I want to be a speaker as well. I am a little bit a podcaster, but he started holding these seminars in rooms of very few people where he spoke about the time that he spent being a monk. And he would just share his story and his wisdom with those few people who were in the room at that time. He didn't go from being a monk to now having, I don't know how many millions of listeners every week on his podcast. Same with people who've been on their fitness journey for a long time. If you've never worked out in your life, you can expect to be on the same level as someone who's worked out for 10 years after a month or 2 or 3 months of training and being consistent with your diet. But if you focus on those slight little tiny bits of progress that you're making, like after 2 weeks, maybe you've lost 2 pounds and you feel better in your body because this healthy nutrition is making you feel so good. Like if you focus on those tiny little things, man, the journey gets fun. And it is not about reaching your goal. It is so much more about the journey. And if you do not enjoy the journey, what are we even doing here? Like, I have accomplished so many of my goals. And every time I'm like, well, now this just feels like my new norm. And that's why now when I set goals, I'm so focused on what I want my daily life to be. That's also why I want to go all in on this podcast now. It's because I really, truly enjoy it. I really, truly enjoy sitting and speaking with you, sitting and speaking with these other guests. When it comes to my short form content, I really, truly enjoy being creative and shooting them and putting them together into these like small little videos. I love it. I'm moving, I said. I'll share more of that probably in later podcast episodes. But the reason I'm moving where I'm moving and the reason I am going to be having the lifestyle that I'm going to be having, because yes, it's going to move me towards my goals, but the lifestyle that I'm going to be developing there is what I really want. That is what makes me happy on a daily basis. So progress over perfection. And number 9 is remember the bigger picture. Oftentimes when we compare ourselves to someone else, we focus on that one area of their life. And let's say you're someone who has a family with beautiful children, beautiful husband, and you live on the countryside, and then you don't have too much time for your morning routine or working out. But at one point you compared yourself to me, let's say, who is in great shape. And you were like, why can't I have a morning routine like that and be in as good of a shape like that? And that's valid, because if you want to get in that shape, I bet you there is a way for you to do that. But let's say you were comparing yourself to someone like me who has no kids, no husband, lives by herself. Like, is that really a life you would actually want? Like, would you actually want to not every single day feel this love from your children and all these other beautiful things that you have going on for you in this, let's say you're living a farm life, like the free air, the animals, you know? It's like when we compare ourselves, it's oftentimes comparing ourselves to that one area of our life rather than the whole picture. And I just wanted to remind you that it's okay for you to want something that someone has, because there's value in that. I always believe that if there's a desire to want something, it's because it's meant for us. There is a version of ourselves that can create that for ourselves. But just a little reminder that you got to see the whole picture. And something I talk about a lot when new people come into my challenges is that to create something new in our life, we often have to let go of something old, right? We have to make space for this new thing. And to do that, we have to let go of something else. If we want to create an earlier morning routine, are we willing to let go of that late night Netflix? If we want to work out for 3 hours a day, are we willing to let go of this family time that we used to spend these 3 hours on? You know, like there has to be made space for the new thing that we want. Now, the 10th comparison mindset that I think is so important to remind ourselves of is that anyone who's doing better than you will never, ever, ever judge you. Whenever we want to embark on something new, we can be terrified of what other people are going to think of us. And someone who's in great shape will never, ever judge you if you're doing an exercise wrong at the gym. Someone who's in great shape will never, ever judge you if you start to be interested in your macros or in the nutrients that are in the different foods that you eat. Someone who's succeeding and thriving in business will never, ever judge you for wanting to start a business. People who are ahead of the game of you in whatever area that you want to move towards is never going to judge you, but the same goes the other way. So if you're judging someone for doing something, it's the same. Could it be because they have had the boldness to pursue something that you haven't had the boldness to pursue because you've been holding yourself back towards that? You are judging someone else for doing that, for showing themselves in whatever way they're showing themselves on social media or the way that they're living their life. I think that the more love we have towards ourselves, the more we accept ourselves, the less we're going to judge anyone else for living their life in the way that they want. The only times in my life, which I don't remember the last time I've compared myself in a negative way to someone on social media. Like I really do not remember, because these things that we've spoken about today, it's ingrained in my soul. But when in the past, if I think back to times where I've compared myself and it's been a negative thing, it's only been when I haven't been focusing on my own goals. I haven't been focusing on the things that I wanted in my life. I've been focusing on others rather than focusing on myself. And that may just be something to think about, that if you are comparing yourself, is it because it's time for you to take action on certain things in your life? Is it because 2025 needs to be the year where you stop making excuses and you actually go boldly after the things that you want, and use these people who you compare yourself to as inspiration? Use it as a positive thing in your life. They are here to teach you something. And if you dare listen and ask yourself what it is that you're seeing in them that you potentially deep down would want in your life, I believe that it will only bring you new miracle moments and inspiration and transformation in your life, which I hope you do. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, I hope you shared with a friend and potentially write a review and or subscribe wherever you're listening in, because I want many more conversations like this with you in 2025. And I'm just so extremely grateful that you were willing to listen. I hope you go out there and have a beautiful day. And as always, remember that in order for you to grow, you have to challenge your norm. Bye.